Hi friends, starting with the 27 Jan editorial. The first editorial is Banking on Good Faith. This editorial speaks about the recent arrest of the IDBI officials by the CBI on the charges of facilitating 900 crore loan to the Kingfisher Airlines without any due diligence or inquiry. So, just after the arrest, this SEBI or the Security Exchange Board of India has barred the Kingfisher promoter Vijay Mallya and also the senior officials of the group firm called United Spirits Limited. So, it has barred the promoter Vijay Mallya and also the senior officials of the belonging to the firm United Spirits Limit from the security dealings and also restrain them from holding directorial position in the listed company. So, they are not able to do the security dealings, and also they are restricted or they restrained from holding the directorial positions in the few listed companies. So coming to the Vijay Mallya, he owes banks almost rupees 9,000 crore and has been in exile in the UK for almost a year. And after a 3-year-long trial, the Debt Recovery Tribunal has allowed a consortium of 17 banks to recover the money from Mallya and the companies. It was allowed to almost recover rupees 6,200 crore. But now, coming to the topic of NPAs, see NPAs, which is the non-performing assets, there has been increase in the NPA. So, under this, with this background, it is very much essential to break the bank officials and the borrower nexus. But we also should ensure that the bankers, the bank officials do not back off from extending credit even at a slight hint of risk. So, we have to ensure that there is not corruption or the unwanted collusion between the officials and borrowers, but also we have to make sure that the bank officials are not scared of to extend the credit. So, in the recent past years, the fear of investigative agency and adverse audit reports was blamed for the so-called policy paralysis. So, in order to ensure both, in order to prevent the corruption and also ensure the protection of the officials, we there's very much necessary to make amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act, particularly to the Section 131D that has resulted in many honest officers being charge sheeted for the corruption of others. So what is needed is the delicate balance between delicate balance should be maintained so that there's no corruption. So you should you should ensure that there's no corruption and also ensure that credit is reached to the really needy persons. So in order to ensure that, there should be an amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act. Now let's move on to the next editorial. Now, the next editorial is the setback to climate action plans. This speaks about the various measures or initiatives taken by the new US President Donald Trump. See, just after minutes after swearing in of the US President Donald Trump, the White House website deleted all the mentions of climate change. And it also instructed the Environmental Protection Agency to delete the or any mentions of the climate change from its website. But after a protest by the scientists and others, then the administration softened its stand and saying that the agency's website is only being reviewed. Now, another concern is the Donald Trump also resurrected, or he brought back the controversial Keystone project that former President Barack Obama had blocked after a battle with policymakers and Dakota Access Pipelines. Now let's see what is this Keystone pipeline system. It is an oil pipeline system in Canada and the United States. It was commissioned in 2010. But this pipeline came to a greater prominence of attention. So it started receiving attention in its planned fourth phase, that is Keystone. And then it attracted growing environmental protest, and it also became a symbol of the battle over climate change and fossil fuels. So the environmentalists started protesting against it. They were concerned about the effect on the climate change and the vast use of fossil fuels. Then in 2015, what happened was that the President Barack Obama rejected this project, and then now in 2017 the new President Donald Trump has been showing a lot of interest in this completion of this pipeline. And another concern is that the administration has mandated that United States Environmental Protection Agency will not publish any data like the routine data or studies before being reviewed. So before releasing to the public, all the data should be reviewed by the administration and then released to the public. So this is the new mandate by the administration. This is again a concern. Mr. Trump, he plans to re-energize the fossil fuel industry, and is also, he wants the America First Energy Plan listed on the White House website, which aims to, increase the fossil fuel extraction in the name of creating more jobs, and also in the process of eliminating other things. That is Obama Climate Action Plan. So it is a clear indication that, Obama is giving more importance to the fossil fuel extraction. So the reason given by him is that it is creating more jobs to the Americans, and also he wants to derail, or he wants to eliminate the Obama's climate action plan. So even more alarming is that Mr. Trump's intention to reverse the America's involvement in the historical Paris Climate Accord. So he is completely against this Paris Climate Accord. Now let's look at the various measures taken by the Obama. The previous president, Mr. Obama, he had announced a target to cut out the greenhouse gas emissions to 26 to 28% below 2005 level by 2025. So by 2025, he had announced to cut the greenhouse emissions by 26 to 28% below the 2005 level. And the few measures were also taken by him, like he had finalized the clean power plan to reduce the carbon dioxide emission from the power sector to 32% below 2005 levels by 2030. So this were the various measures taken by the previous president, Mr. Barack Obama. But now it seems that the new president Donald Trump is like in move to complete reversal of such measures, and is giving a lot of importance to the fossil fuels, and therefore is showing that is more concerned about the US than about the entire world. So if you take the global scenario, with a global average temperature already reaching 0.8 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels, there are fears among the people, among all the countries, that the further delay will have long-term effects. Long-term effects in such a way that it will be really impossible to mitigate the climate change impacts. Now, moving on to the next editorial, which is Rolling Back Ordinance Raj. So, we all know that the power to promulgate ordinance is under Article 123, which defines the ordinance making power of the Union Executive, and also states that when both the houses. So for that, both the houses of the parliament, both the houses of the parliament are not in session, and the president, and if the president is satisfied that circumstances exist which render it necessary for him to take immediate action, then he can promulgate the ordinance. So in order to promulgate an ordinance, both the sessions should not be in session, and also president should be satisfied that there is the circumstance exist for him to promulgate the ordinance. And it also states that any ordinance shall have the same force and effect as a statute of parliament, provided it is laid before both the houses. So it has the effect of the same effect as the statute of parliament. And also the ordinance will cease to operate. So it will cease to operate after the expiration of 6 weeks from the reassembly of parliament, or parliament at any time before the conclusion of the period, before the end of this period, can pass a resolution disapproving the ordinance. So ordinance ceases immediately after 6 weeks, once the reassembly of the parliament, and also parliament can pass the resolution disapproving the ordinance. And in similar way, the states are also given power under Article 213. Now, speaking about the separation of powers, see, the duty of the legislature is, the primary job is to make laws. So, legislature has to make laws, and the executive has to administer the country using these laws, by enforcing these laws. So, by enforcing the laws made by the legislative, the executive has to administer the country. And coming to the judiciary interprets this law. So it interprets So the judiciary job is to interpret the law and see if they're being followed, and also whenever required it reviews to ensure the constitutionality. So it also ensures that whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional. And the executive power, now given that executive is issuing ordinance, so the executive power to issue ordinance goes against this general separation of powers. So this is like giving enormous amount of power to the executive. Now coming to the recent case, which where like Krishna Kumar Singh versus State of Bihar, in this case, the Supreme Court said that not only the repromulgated ordinances but even the ordinances issued at the first instance are subject to judicial review. So now the ordinance, both which are issued at the first both of which are issued like for the first time and also repromulgated, they all are subjected to the judicial review. And for this he relied on the Bommai case, where the nine judge bench on the court ruled that judiciary could strike down a proclamation of emergency when the power had been exercised by the executive to secure an public purpose. So keeping this as a base, the Supreme Court said that the ordinance are subject to judicial review. And also the Supreme Court said that in under this, like while looking into the case of ordinances, the Supreme Court will not inquire into the adequacy or sufficiency of the material before the president or the governor. So it will not look into the the adequacy or sufficiency of the material before the president or governor. But what is investigating is that it is investigating to see if there has been a fraud or abuse of power committed by the executive. So it is investigating if the executive has committed any abuse of power. The Supreme Court is only interested in to check whether the executive has committed any fraud or abuse of power, but it is not interested, it is not interested to go into the material which was laid before the president or governor. And also, other very important thing is that the Supreme Court also ruled that ordinance is distinct from the temporary legislation, and therefore it does not automatically create rights and liabilities that go beyond its terms of operation. So it means that while promulgating an ordinance, the executive also has to define its time period of operation. So beyond this time period, the automatically all the so beyond this time period, the rights or the rights or liabilities that is created by the ordinance, they decline to exist. So it is very much essential for the executive to mention the time period for which the ordinance will be in power. So after that, ordinance they automatically dissolve. So it held that under the ordinance, the orders have the same force and effect of a legislation only so long as they are operational. So only only for the time period they are operational, the ordinance will have the same force and effect of a legislation. After the time period, it will be it will be dissolved, or it doesn't have the same effect. And also the Supreme Court said that it is very much essential to test if the ordinance is in the public interest or going against the public interest. This is also another very important test to be made. So that's it for this editorial. Now let's move on to the next editorial. The next editorial is a case for targeted basic income. So in the previous editorials, we have seen the points against universal basic income. So the author had given few points which were like saying that universal basic income is not good for the country. Now in this editorial, it speaks about the few points which supporting the universal basic income. Let's see that. See, 1918, Bertrand Russell, he discussed in his book, The Proposed Road to Freedom, that certain small income sufficient for necessary should be secured to all, whether they work or not. And he said that whether people working or not, if the person is interested to work, after finishing education, if the person is interested to work, he can work, and if the person is not interested to work, he should not be compelled to work. And he should be given like minimum So basically, he's saying that, see, after finishing education, if a person wants to work, he can work. But if a person doesn't want to work after finishing education, he should not be compelled to work, and he should be given the basic income. He should be provided with the basic income by the state, so that he receive the bare livelihood and is completely free. He should so that is completely free and is not forced by anyone or by the society. And similar, the trial of regarding the universal basic income is made in Finland, and after this, the results are waited. And many economists are advocating universal basic income. They're saying that it helps in fighting inequality, slow wage growth, and also advancing the automation, and and it also takes away the fears that immigrants will take away the jobs. So it'll help to soothe the fears among the natives, that if that immigrants will take away their jobs. So in order to reduce that fear among the natives, universal basic income is a good initiative. And also, while free trade and technological advances have grown national income, so this trade technological advances has helped to increase our national income. Not every individual is better off, so there's still inequality. In order to reduce this inequality, many are proposing universal basic income. So there are similar initiatives in India, like the Food Security Act, where the statutory income transfers are made. And also, there is another similar to this is the Manerga, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. But the many are arguing that the universal basic income is far more better or easier and cleaner than Manerga, because since putting money into select other seeded Jandan bank accounts is to be more simple than providing 100 days of work. And also, it helps to prevent the wastage of resources. So these are the pros of the universal basic income. Now coming to the lessons from a pilot project which had happened in the Madhya Pradesh, and it has been accounted in the book called Basic Income: A Transformative Policy for India by Sarad Davla, Renan Javela, and Soumya K. Mehta. Here they've seen many, this here, the book speaks about the positive impacts of the universal basic income. First, it says that after providing universal basic income, the nutrition intake rose, especially the pulses, fish, vegetables, etc. So it's saying that the nutritional intake increased, and also the enrollment attendance, especially among the female students, increased. So it improved. So the enrollment ratio also improved. And also, coming to the second point, it said that it resulted in a more equitable development. And also the more marginalized individual, they started exercising their power in the community, and they had also and third is that as a result of the universal basic incomes, villagers worked harder than before, with a number of adults engaging in two economic activities. So this is little difficult to take it, but the book is saying that after universal basic income, the villagers started working even more harder. And also, the fourth thing is that indebtedness decreased. So the indebtedness decreased, and thus leading to saved increased over the pilot period. So with the decrease in indebtedness, so as a result, people saved more money. But still, there are few doubts among the people that this amount can be used by the abusers, to waste or to spend it in alcohol, or the spend might be in like smoking, etc. And also, this welfare payments are like dignity destroying also. So it takes away the right to live with dignity, because you're just so you're treating the individual as one who cannot work, or who cannot live on its own terms. Thus, you are making him dependent on the government for his basic livelihood. So this is just like almost like destroying the dignity of an individual. And there's also, there are few, as we know, there's a famous quote like, don't just give them the fish but teach them how to fish. So when you do this, see, when you give them fish, it's just for in that moment or one day or maybe for a few days, but when you teach them how to fish, it's they're like, it helps them throughout their life, so it's the lifelong benefit. Now, coming to India's case, we already have so many programs and there's a lot of subsidies and there's therefore a lot of burden on India now. So if you start giving universal basic income, this again puts more pressure on the Indian economy. So what is needed, the writer says that first we have to come out with the socio-economic senses, and those who are very marginalized, the one who are not even having a few basic things, so they should be provided with universal basic income. So the most deprived should be provided with the universal basic income, then providing universal basic income to everyone. So that is the suggestion of the writer. Now let's move on to the next editorial. The next editorial is the peace is a process. It speaks about about the peace talks in Astana in Kazakhstan. The various stakeholders here were the Iran, Russia, Turkey, and also Syrian government and armed opposition. So they, especially the Syrian government and armed opposition, they sat together for the first time in 6 years. So what happened in here is that in the end, the powers came to an understanding, which itself is a matter of great significance. And the principal dispute on the table was that how to define the ceasefire. Like the armed opposition, they wanted a national ceasefire, whereas Syrian government and the Iranians they were very keen to maintain their presence at the local levels. Now, ultimately, what happened was that the three powers agreed upon a mechanism to monitor the ceasefire, although this does not cover those who did not come to Astana. So, now there is a mechanism to monitor the ceasefire, but it does not cover who the stakeholders or the people who didn't come to Astana. So now the two parties that were outside the ceasefire are Islamic States and Al Qaeda proxy Jabhat Fateh al Sham. So these are the two parties which are out of the ceasefire. Now coming to the present situation in Syria, the Syrian army is like weakened, and this is like shown by the fact, demonstrated by the fact of the advance of the IS into Palmyra and Deir Zor towns, which is at the two ends of the Great Syrian Desert. And this IS seizure of the Deir Zor town, it has left many people without regular access to food and medicines. So this is again concern, and also the demonstration to show that military is weakening, and also the overstretching of the Syrian forces and reliance upon the Iranian and Lebanese fighters and Russia's support means that it also means that fight cannot continue indefinitely. So you cannot, the Syria cannot depend on the support from the Iran and Russia for indefinite time period. So there should be there should be a ceasefire to end this. Now, apart from the IS and JFS, the Syrian government also have to deal with two problems. So the two problems are the Syrian Kurds. The Syrian Kurds whose political aspiration have been suppressed as a cost of Turkish involvement. The Syrian Kurds, the Kurds who are protesting in the Turkey, and also protesting against the Turkey government, but they are they're supporting the they're supporting the Syrian government in its fight against the rebels. Now, since the Turkey is with Syria now, the Syrian Kurds, they might rebel against the Syrian government. So now that is a challenge. Another challenge is that Islamist armed opposition who came to Astana but refused to describe Syria as a secular state. So these are the two concerns now, or you can say two challenges now. Now, as to conclude, peace is a process, it's not a state. So definitely take some time for all the parties to acknowledge the battle, and also to come into a peace. So the from Astana now there are more chances that the negotiations may move back to Geneva, that is to UN, and it is like we are hopeful that enough progress will be made on that. So that's it for today's editorial. If you have found this editorial useful, please like and subscribe to my channel, and also give me your feedback. Thanks for watching.